Most people launch Performance Max campaigns the wrong way and then wonder why Google burns through their budget with nothing to show for it. Performance Max can drive amazing results, but only if it's set up correctly from day one. In this video, I'll show you what's working in real accounts I manage right now, so this isn't theory. I've helped dozens of e-commerce brands scale using Performance Max, and this is the exact setup and framework we use to get stable and profitable results. With that said, let's get into the video. So I am inside in the new campaign menu inside in Google Ads, and I am first asked to select my campaign objective. Now, as an e-commerce brand, my objective is sales. We can go ahead and create a campaign without guidance if we prefer. This doesn't actually have an effect on your campaign. It just does dictate what type of campaigns you can set up. So look, for this video, I'm going to click on sales. Next up, we are using these conversion goals to improve sales. And the account default here is purchase. We know that that's set up correctly. That's obviously really important to set up before starting any campaign. And the next thing that we're going to be met with is to select a campaign type. And obviously in this video, we are setting up a Performance Max campaign. Next up, we are going to want to add products to this campaign. So we're going to advertise products from a Merchant Center account. And we're going to select our Merchant Center account, and that should be already linked to your Google Ads account. We are going to give this campaign a name. So let's call it Performance Max, and I'm going to create a best sellers campaign. Next up, we are asked about bidding. I generally like to start my campaigns on maximize conversion value bidding. This just helps get more data more quickly behind the campaign. You do have to be conscious that maximize conversion value, as opposed to setting a target ROAS right away, will likely lead to more aggressive bidding by the algorithm. And if you're setting up a Performance Max campaign, my recommendation is to ensure you have a mature account with a lot of conversion volume behind it. This will speed up the learning process for any new campaigns and will help you achieve better performance more quickly, essentially. I then recommend once you have 2, 3, 4 weeks of solid conversion data inside in this Performance Max campaign, when you're on maximize conversion value, you can then consider moving to target ROAS bidding. That's how I like to operate, and it works quite well for us. Now, I discussed this again, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to leave customer acquisition as the default unticked and go next. And we're moving on to campaign settings. So first of all, our location. So let's say we want to target the whole of the US. So we click on the US here. We have to be very careful though. We need to click on this drop-down menu of location options, because by default, Google will select presence or interest. So people regularly in or who've shown interest in your included locations. This is recommended by Google as opposed to just presence. So not people who are interested, but people who are present in your location. The issue with presence or interest is that somebody like myself who's not currently based in the US would be deemed as having an interest in the US. I advertise in the US. I have a lot of interest in US news. I'm on a lot of my Google devices looking at information about the US. So technically speaking, I could be inside in this bracket as having an interest in the US. That said, if I was a US advertiser and I only shipped product to the US, I won't want to be targeting people who are outside the US but are just interested. It wouldn't make sense to me because I can't send product to them, or I don't want to. So select presence. It will just give you more efficiency from the get-go. Select our language. It's by default here English. We select no to this campaign doesn't have EU political ads. I'm based in the EU at the moment, and as such I get this every time I set up a new campaign. I don't plan to use this account to run EU political ads. Next up then, ad schedule, keep all the time. Campaign URL options, you don't have to change this if you don't want to. Devices is next. Generally you can keep this open, or you can exclude some devices. I know people have a bit of a preference at times of excluding tablets. They tend to be slightly poorer performing in terms of absolute volume. At times, for some brands, I see them perform just as efficiently as computers and mobiles. Sometimes it's less. Now, if you have existing campaigns, maybe you can review your data of tablets and TV screens, and if you see consistently underperformance there, well, then maybe you might say, look, we'll exclude tablets and TV screens. More settings then. Brand exclusions is the next really important setting. So the issue I see most often for people with Performance Max campaigns is that they think it's doing really, really well. So they'll continue to push spend through it, and then all of a sudden it'll reach a point where when they're putting more spend through it, it basically plummets in performance. And generally speaking, what I see most often as the cause of this is that the Performance Max campaign is cannibalizing their branded traffic, either from branded search placements or by using shopping placements on branded terms also. That gives a false sense of performance, giving you the idea that performance is actually much more efficient than it actually is. So we have lots of room to scale, when in fact your non-branded performance could be quite low, but it could be being supplemented by really efficient branded performance. And as a result, then you get this really murky picture. So generally speaking, I like to exclude brand in two ways. I like to add negative keyword lists, so my branded negative keyword list to my Performance Max campaign. And the second then is via a brand exclusion. So we can add our brand list here, and we are not going to click on allow shopping ads on searches that mention excluded brands. We don't want to do that. Beyond that, you have demographic exclusions. This is new inside Google Ads. It's not something I've tested quite extensively. Generally speaking, Performance Max is quite intelligent, and I think it's pretty easy with time for machine learning to understand which demographics are performing best and prioritize them in terms of delivery. So it's something that I will be testing, but more so in accounts that have a really clear picture in terms of a maybe gender split amongst customers that is in excess of maybe 90-10, or has a really clear age profile that's either really young or quite high. But if you're somewhere in the middle, I don't see the benefit of doing this. I would let machine learning do its thing. So next up is asset generation. This is where we let Google AI help us generate assets. Once again, it's not something that I like to use too often myself. I prefer having intentionally added assets that either we know are performing well or we're testing with a reason, as opposed to having Google's AI test a lot of assets. I don't think it is the approach, at least for now. So generally speaking, I would skip this. Then we're going to give our asset group a name. So I might just call this best sellers. So next up is our listing group, and listing group basically just means our products. Now, because I said this is a best sellers Performance Max campaign, I'll want to go in and edit this from all products to just the best selling products that I want to select. So we're going to click in here and say use a selection of products. And then we have an opportunity to select products by a series of different ways. Now, we can select it by item ID, which is going to just give us the ID of the product, and we can manually select each product. We can select products by type, by condition, by brand, by category, or we can select products by custom label. Now, if you use a feed management tool, or you can do this manually yourself inside Google Merchant Center, you can label products perhaps as best sellers. And that means that you just have to go in and pick, so let's say custom label 0 is your best sellers, and then you can actually change which products come in and out on that. You can create rules to move products in and out, or you can do it manually. Let's just say for the sake of the video, I will pick 3 products from our list of products using item ID, and these will be, let's say, my 3 bestseller products that I want to target. Next up then are brand guidelines. So we're going to provide some logos along with our business name. So if we can provide a variety of logos, so horizontal, square, that just helps us with different placements. We can also give information on our color preference for our main color and our accent color along with our font. And next up, we are into asset creation itself. Inside in our assets, there are a number of things that we need to set up. The first is our final URL. This is where people will go after they click on our ad. Now, I've just said basically www.yourwebsite.com. Obviously, I'm getting the error message here. It doesn't match this Google ad account, which is fine. And next up is our first ad text requirement, which are headlines. Headlines are up to 30 characters in length. We can add up to 15 of them and a minimum of 5. Somewhere in the middle there between 8 and 10, 8 and 11 is generally where I max out, unless I have specific ones that I want to test more of. I personally find that maxing out across all of our assets generally leads to filling these gaps with poor quality text or image assets, for example. It also means that we don't get as quick feedback because Google has to test a wider variety of assets across different ad placements. So sometimes I actually think it's better to start lower with assets that you're more confident in, because you get quicker feedback into what's working and what's not, and then you can obviously change out what's not working. You also have long headlines, which are up to 90 characters in length. Again, you can have between 1 and 5 of these. Somewhere in the middle, once again, is good. Descriptions up to 90 characters. Again, just to be aware that long headlines and standard headlines won't interact with each other in an individual delivery, so you can repeat it yourself here, but just be conscious that your descriptions can be paired up with your headlines, so don't obviously repeat word for word what you're saying. Not that that would be good practice anyway. But in terms of ad text, a few principles: add keyword-centric terms. So you should be creating an asset group around a common theme. So make sure that that common theme is basically given back in your ad text. So if it's a particular hero product, if it's women's shoes or men's shoes, and make sure you're talking about men's shoes and women's shoes in your headlines and your descriptions. Social proof, really strong offer, strong and specific call to actions really helps. And then benefit, outcome focused language. They're all principles I discuss in my Google Ad Copy 101 video. I'll link it here. Images are next. You should have a variety of images. So square, horizontal, landscape. It just allows you to create ads for different placements. Be conscious of text across images, because Google can sometimes flag it for a policy violation, but also some of your placements can be quite small. So text can be difficult to read if it's not very legible. So Sometimes what might work on Facebook or Instagram in feed actually won't translate as much to a display ad that could have a slightly smaller placement and relative size compared with some of your Facebook creatives. UGC style images work really well. Native style images work fantastically well as well. But once again, you need to keep your images consistent with the asset group theme. I'll keep saying it. All of your assets need to be centralized around that common theme. I mentioned it in my last video about Performance Max campaign structure, but make sure that you are putting in images that are most relevant to your common asset group theme. The next assets are videos. Now, first of all, in order to use videos, they must be uploaded to YouTube. They can be unlisted or private, so they don't have to be public, but they have to be uploaded to YouTube in order to be used on Google Ads. So ideally, test a mixture of horizontal, which is quite often more kind of longer VSL style, or could be more hi-fi, and also have some YouTube short content, which is more similar quite often in nature to more native content on Facebook or Instagram. So use a combination of vertical and horizontal, use a combination of different video types, as I said, more hi-fi stuff, professional, VSL, and then traditional UGC like unboxing or testimonials work really well as well. So what you need to remember is that people are on YouTube for A, entertainment, and B, educational content. And quite often it's the latter that will do well, because people are looking for maybe reviews of your type of product, or they are just looking to be educated on what it is your product does. And this type of content can work really well. Next up are your ad extensions. Site links, first of all, make sure that they are, once again, closely linked to your asset group theme. Call to action, you can either keep this automated or you can select something like Shop Now. You have other asset types: callouts, price, promotion, structured snippet. Once again, these are all gone through in far more depth in my ad copy video, but just always look to provide more value with your ad extensions. They're a great way of taking up more digital real estate. They're also a great way of creating more ad relevance by front loading some really important product terms that the user might be searching for. So don't just rush through them. Try to give as much value to the end user as possible. And next up is asset optimization. So there's a few different optimizations that Google will by default turn on. So the first are text optimization. So it will basically use information from your landing page to create its own headlines and things like that. So it operates quite like DSA. Quite often I will turn that off. And the second one is final URL expansion. Now, final URL expansion is quite an interesting one, and I'm going to speak about it in more depth in my next video. But basically, if I'm starting out with a new campaign, I will generally speaking turn it off. And once I have more consistent performance across my campaign, then I might look to turn it on. If I have it turned on, I will have very strict boundaries on what it is that I'm looking to target or important pages that I'm looking to exclude. But basically speaking, if you're very confident in all of the assets in your landing page that you have put together for this asset group, well, then you will probably not want to put a lot of these enhancements from Google on. So you've got text enhancements, you've got image enhancements, in terms of it can change the formatting and the layout of your image in order for you to be able to serve on different placements. So once again, it's something that I generally turn off. And video enhancement as well. Basically, it can turn your horizontal video to square video, or it can create a shorter video from a longer video. Once again, I've seen end products of these that are quite poor. I've seen ones that aren't bad, but I've also seen ones that really leave a little bit to be desired. And as such, it's generally something that I also turn off. And that brings us on to signals. So signals provide valuable information about the people you want to reach. They help guide who sees your ads on Google search, YouTube, and more. Now, the important thing that you need to know with signals, be it search terms or audience signals, is that they are just signals. They are not you telling Google to target someone in particular. They're you telling Google, I think this is important information for you to have, either in search themes about the type of queries that people type in looking for our products, or in terms of audience signal, these are important people either for our business, in terms of our customer list, or the psychodemographics of people that buy from us. So search themes essentially are where we provide words and phrases that describe what our customers are likely to search for. So if I am a running brand and let's say I sell running shoes, then some of my search themes, maybe I'll be able to see from other campaigns, so search and shopping campaigns, what people are actually searching and converting on. So it could be men's running shoes, it could be running shoes for marathon, it could be running shoes with cushioning, and it could be white, lightweight shoes for running. We can add up to 50 of these. Now, search themes allow us to tell Google the type of terms we either believe will or no to convert. So if it is something that we've seen in our search term reports, great, or if it's something that we believe is an important term. Personally speaking, I've had mixed results with search themes, and I know that the literature out there speaks a similar picture. Generally speaking, performance actually tends to be worse. Last year, I read a report that search themes did not necessarily have a net positive impact on performance, and the same to a lesser extent with audience signals. Now, that is a macro level report. If you're an individual business, you could fall in one end of the scale or the other. You could be a business where search themes or audience signals work really well for you, or you could be the opposite. But on average, they found that it didn't have a net, great positive effect. So I, generally speaking, will use it for new Performance Max campaigns more often than anything else. And that just helps guide the campaign a little bit more. The only other time I use it more consciously is when I'm trying to prioritize search placements in a Performance Max campaign, because when you have more search themes, I have just found from personal experience that you will see more traffic, more clicks, impressions, etc., run through the search element of that Performance Max campaign relative to a campaign that doesn't have search themes. So if I have a conscious reason to push more search in a Performance Max campaign, then I will look to add search themes to help me do that. But again, you do have to remember they are just a signal. It's not a direct targeting method. It's not you saying to Google only target people who are searching for these terms. They're not keywords. They are just a guide. With search themes, it's important to understand how they interact with search campaigns. So if you have existing campaigns on search in your account and you are creating a Performance Max campaign and you're running search themes, if you have exact match keywords and somebody has searched for that exact match keyword and you have an exact match keyword in your search campaign, that will get prioritized over Performance Max. So exact match keywords get prioritized over search themes in Performance Max. On the contrary, phrase and broad match inside your search campaigns will compete directly with your Performance Max kind of search portion. When I say compete, I don't mean that they'll self-compete or auto-compete in that they'll drive costs up. But essentially what happens is that Google will decide which of your placements, be it from search or from Performance Max, has a higher ad rank, and then that one will be put forward into the auction, or possibly to participate in the auction and potentially serve. I would say if you have particular search queries that are really important for your business or that convert really well, and you want to ensure that you're serving for as much of them as possible, or you want to get as much conversion value through them as possible, if you prioritize them in search using exact match, you have things like adjusting your bidding, you've adjusting your budget, and that has a direct impact on how well you serve on those particular keywords. If you're serving on those keywords more so in Performance Max and you increase your budget or you change your bids, those changes on bids or budgets have an effect at a campaign level and don't have the same direct effect on a keyword level. So you lose a small bit of control. So it's something to be aware of. If you want to maintain control over key high converting terms, then run them in exact match, or don't run search themes, or don't run Performance Max at all. There's 100 ways to skin a cat, but just to be aware. The difference with audience signal then versus search themes, I would say search themes are intent based buckets. So search themes are saying if someone is searching for X, Y, and Z, these are high intent terms. This is intent based. Whereas audience signals are saying, okay, Google, go look at people like audience A, B, and C based on identity, who they are. My recommendation to create a good audience signal is to include first party data. That's at its core the most important, because that's a really good way of you telling Google, these people are customers. They have bought my products before. Go look at them on a wider level and analyze the psychodemographics within this cohort and go find more people like those. Because if we can find more people that share the browsing tendencies, the demographics, the interests, the affinities with our existing customers, then there's a higher likelihood that they'll also find the value that our customers do from our brand and our products. So first party data is very useful. So you can also add different in-market segments, affinity segments. I use these less than most others. The only other audience that I tend to use a small bit is creating a custom segment of competitor URLs of, let's say, my nearest competition. Not necessarily aspirational competitors, but people who are very close to me in terms of auction insights and things like that. Because once again, I know that those people are people who have an interest in the types of products that I sell. So telling Google about those people is also beneficial, but that is using competitor URLs in custom segments. But even if you just export your customer list from Shopify, or you sync it up in Google Ads and you either add your all-time customer list, so you give it a lot of data, or you add maybe your most valuable customers based on purchase volume or purchase quantity, that's really useful information for Google, particularly once again for new Performance Max campaigns. That is when I find it most useful. If I have Performance Max campaigns that are working really well, I won't retrospectively add audience signals because targeting is pretty well dialed at that point. It is more so useful when you are starting out with a new campaign. So now that we've gone through our asset group. We've gone through our search themes, our audience signal. Click on next and we're going to be asked to set a daily budget. My recommendation really at a minimum is $100 a day. Anything less than that, I find it's difficult to get enough conversion volume. It's difficult to scale the campaign long term. And quite often you're actually better using that budget inside in manual campaigns, or even not even manual campaigns, but by using smart. Less than 100, you're probably better off staying with those standard campaigns for the time being. And obviously you can go higher than that, but just bearing in mind that Performance Max will give you kind of choppy performance initially. Quite often it obviously depends on a whole host of factors, including, you know, the account maturity and the targets you're setting and everything like that. But I would say be prepared to set a budget that you're happy to stick with for at least a month. So don't go gung-ho and set it at $1,000 a day and then find that actually after a couple of days of, you know, poor choppy performance that you need to rein it back in, because that won't help you in the long term. So set a budget you're comfortable investing in. It will take time. Performance Max does take time, but if you set it up correctly as I've shown you, then it can be really, really useful for your business and help you find, you know, new pockets of growth that you otherwise would have left untapped. Then we click publish and we are ready to go. That's how you set up a Performance Max campaign step by step in 2026. Even if you do follow this step by step, it's not enough to guarantee maximum performance. Your assets, your product feed, your tracking, your daily optimizations, it's these things that will actually determine whether or not your Performance Max can scale or continues to waste your spend. So if you want help setting this up the right way and managing it the right way, or fixing an existing campaign, check the link in the description below and book a free strategy call with me today. We'll look at your account together on the call and see exactly what's holding it back. And once you book that call, check out this next video where I go through my A to Z Performance Max optimizations.